welcome everyone. I'll say to start. Karina, I'll start first. Let's go ahead. I'm sharing the slides with everyone. Okay, welcome to the webinar. Finally, we're having a webinar experience of women with real loss today. That's not a random day that we chose because it's the International Day for the elimination of violence against women. So we thought it would be nice to combine this day talking especially about women with hearing loss, that it's women's issues that is not really tackled. So we thought it had been the best day to do this. We'll start with the agenda. So very briefly, we have an introduction on the general topic. Then we will present the survey findings that are coming from the FO survey about women with hearing loss in Europe. Then we have a roundtable discussion with some young women who will share their experiences. Also an experience of deaf and hard of hearing women in Finland by Sari. And then we have some tips of action for your organization to engage in women for hearing loss issues. And then we will have a final Q&A. Also, I encourage everyone to leave questions in the chat anytime, and we will get back to them in the Q&A session. First, instructions for the speech to text. You can find the link in the chat for the text and tap link, click on it, and you'll find the captioning. You can also choose another language than English if you requested that. So change it where you see the flag, you can change it. And then with our housekeeping rules, please keep your microphone mute for the webinar. When you like to speak, please have your camera on. And if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, or you can set right in the chat anytime. And once you're given the floor, then you can introduce yourself, organization, and have your camera and microphone on. So we're starting the webinar, something interactive. Let me try to scan the QR code with another device, or otherwise there should be the link in the chat if you have any problem with doing that. We wanted to a little bit engage with you first. We have 2 questions, and they will have anonymous answers. And the first one is just for you. What it means for you, out of hearing women's empowerment. You can just write one word. Also, I'll show at the same time the answers will appear on the screen while you are scanning the QR code. And then we have a simple question with yes or not if you are engaged in any initiatives or activities in your organizations or outside of that are dealing with the hard of hearing women's issues. I hope if you have any issues with the QR code scanning, please ask in the chat. I'll try now to I'll share my screen so we can see the results at the same time. If you didn't manage that, you can still scan the QR code and join with your answer to the question. Thank you for joining this little interactive quiz. Thank you so much. And give us the chance to see a little bit of your answers that probably reflects your experience or just your ideas, and it's a nice way to kick off just with reflection that might also reflect actually our findings or not. Nice. I see already all the few answers. I'll leave just, let's say, another few seconds, 30 seconds, maximum like a minute if you didn't manage yet to answer. Okay, I think we waited some time. So if anyone is not joining, these are the, I hope you can see the answers. We have freedom in the work, compassion, access, participate, community, visibility and accessibility, hearing people, unity, making them strong in every field, and listening without reading lips. I think maybe a few of those will reflect our findings, but we'll see. I'll go with the second one. The second one, just repeating, you can see it, is, are you part of any initiatives within or outside of your organization, which is dealing with hard of hearing women's issues? To check what's your engagement with hard of hearing women's issues. Wait just a few seconds. But I think we more or less we got the main answer, and the answer is majority says no, but a good 33% says yes. So it's nice to see that. So the quiz is over, but thank you so much for joining it. Now I will leave the floor to Karina and keep sharing the slides. So the result of the last question was no majority. It's not involved, but a good part is already. Okay. So please, Karina.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Karina Chupina, and I am a former president of International Federation of Hard of Hearing Young People, and now I'm the FHO volunteer. I'm representing FHO at the European Disability Forum Women's Committee, and today I'm trying to give back to FHO with information on how we can make women and hard of hearing women specifically more visible in our organizations and their issues. So why do we have this webinar? It's because, first of all, 60% of the persons with disabilities in Europe are women and girls with disabilities. And women with disabilities face dual discrimination based on gender and on disability. And the harmful attitude due to stereotypes further marginalize women with disabilities till this day. Furthermore, the challenges which are specific to hard of hearing women need more exploration, and there is very little data to find about situation of hard of hearing women or violence against hard of hearing women. Next slide, please. We are following the UN CRPD in our work, and the UN CRPD Article 6 recognizes multiple discrimination faced by women with disabilities. It required measures to ensure equal enjoyment of human rights for women with disabilities. And it calls states parties to take all appropriate measures to ensure the full development, advancement, and empowerment of women so that they can exercise and enjoy the human rights and fundamental freedom set out in the Convention. Next slide, please. So what does the UNCRPD mean by empowerment? Empowerment means gaining power and control over one's own life. And the empowerment should not be perceived as a zero-sum game where women benefit and men lose. No, empowerment of women benefits everyone. It involved awareness raising of the rights and needs of women with disabilities. It involved building self-confidence, expanding choices, and transforming systems of inequality. Next slide, please. And there are some critical questions we want to consider, and we hope that the webinar will help to answer this question. The questions are, do we address intersectional discrimination against hard of hearing women in our project? Do we consider their specific needs and challenges? And how does our work impact hard of hearing women? These are critical questions we need to answer in our work. And to address the gaps in data about women with hearing loss, FHO, as part of the European Disability Forum Women's Committee, launched a survey which was inspired by the EDF survey for women with disabilities. And the objectives of the survey were to identify challenges faced by hard of hearing women in Europe, to inform FHO membership projects and programs to better meet hard of hearing women's needs. Also, the survey aimed to make barriers specific to hard of hearing women more visible, and also to explore violence against hard of hearing women, because this is a very much unexplored topic. So the survey, I should say, it's an exploratory survey. It's not representative because we don't have many answered, but we still got valuable insights on the key issues, such as empowerment of hard of hearing women, civic and political participation of hard of hearing women, accessibility to public and healthcare services, employment, access to justice, and violence. And now I will give a floor to Lavindia Rotundi, FHO policy trainee, and Maria Skochinska, FHO volunteer, to share part of the key issues covered by the survey, to share part of the results.
Thank you, Karina, for introducing our report, because just to remark this, the findings from the survey that has been collected and reported. This report will be published after webinar, so you will be able to go through that and review it. And the 6 key issues that have been introduced right now by Karina are the 6, let's say, main areas that we identified with the findings that have been collected through the responses. I'll go through the first one. That is we identified this main area with the desired changes and improvements of hard of hearing women's rights. So through the responses, respondents share their experiences and what they would like to actually be changed to improve rights, especially for women from hearing loss. And one of the main findings that have been collected is the request to have hearing aids that are government funded to have equal access, but also to strengthen the legislation, so anti-discrimination legislations, especially to provide a reasonable accommodation at the workplace and in education to guarantee equal accessibility. Another action that has been suggested and recommended to have and to promote our awareness campaigns to reduce all the stigma there is around hearing loss, but especially from a gender perspective, and also to encourage professional training for healthcare providers, educators, and employers. And then also to integrate the gender and disability perspective together. So an intersectionality perspective to have in policies, in campaigns and in legislation in order to provide the resource allocation, especially considering the hard of hearing needs. And also one of the main complaints, so to for desired change is actually to reduce the waiting times, but also ensure the support for hearing aids, also mental support, and more communication support to lead accessibility for women with hearing loss in order to tackle both gender issues and hearing loss. I'll give the floor to Maria, please. Maria, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Can you hear me? I think it kicked me out for a moment.
Now we see you now. We see you. At least I can see you. I can hear you. I was leaving the floor to you.
Okay, good. So we have here the civic and political participation that is quite important key issue. Because the majority of our participants are actively engaged in civic or political movement. But it's also not that easy at its core team because some of them they do not know how to get involved, where to look for organization or civic or political movement. And even if they know how to get involved, they still have barriers that that standing on their will to change the environment to actually make an important change. Next slide. Yeah, and here we have even more difficult topic, which is the accessibility to public and healthcare services. Um, and you can see on screen what are the most important issues that our participants wrote in our survey, which is mostly the access to information in person, meaning hearing loop, communication, getting the information from speakers on the train station and so on. And you have also, you can see that accessing information offline is quite difficult. Or yeah, there are also some people one person who said that there's no difficulty to get access to public and healthcare. But well, as you can see, the most urgent thing to deal with is the communication with medical staff, because well, when someone of you gets sick and you cannot communicate with your doctor properly, then it's not enough that you are sick, but also very stressed about having a proper communication. And you also know those situations when you are waiting for the train is moved to another track, so you have no idea where you have to go, and you hear some information through the speaker, but you don't know where it is. I guess that you can relate more or less to this kind of a situation. While moving on, yes. Then we have employment. Sorry. Then we have the problem with the long waiting time for the appointment, especially the appointment with audiologist, which you know how important it's for you if you want to have your hearing aid or TI, fixed it. And you also can you can also read here the quite shocking, at least for me, quite shocking story from one of our participants, which stated that for consultation at hospital, the relative to a person with critical illness, there is no accommodation for me at heart of hearing relative. This is obviously discrimination since relative with typical hearing will be a support for their family. So you can actually see that it's not just minor problem, but it's actually a major problem. Moving on to employment. Well, most of the women who responded to our survey, they are employed or taking employment or already retired. You need to keep in mind that we still have gender-based salary and inequalities. 2 years ago, the women's gross hourly earnings were on average 12.7% lower than men in European Union. But you also have to keep in mind that those are statistics for women in general. We don't really know how different is the salary for women with disabilities who need specific accommodation, who sometimes are given less hours than fully capable women. So we don't really know what are data here. You can also see that there's a lack of support at work. The cases of harassment or refusal to provide general or technical assistance, like you would like to have an induction loop at your workplace, but you are refused to get to be given it. You are attending the discussion at your work, and you have no idea what people are saying, but there is no adjustment to you to include you into the discussion. And we can go on and on when it comes to this. And also, well, if you have this kind of challenges, especially having on the top of it gender inequality, it's quite hard for hard-of-hearing women to get benefits from the opportunities, equal opportunities in the labor market. Well, now I'm giving the floor to Karina, who will explain to you the matter of access to justice.
Yes, thank you, Maria. So in access to justice, almost all respondents who needed to attend the judicial hearing claimed that hearing was not accessible to them. So they were not provided with reasonable accommodation, which restricted access and does not provide them with the equal possibility to defend their rights. And here I also wanted to draw attention to one example of lack of access to justice, which took place in Slovakia a few years ago, when one hard-of-hearing woman became a party to legal proceedings, and she needed captioning for the hearing. When she asked the judge for access to captioning, she was refused. Then what she did was to bring captioner with herself and offer to pay for the captioner herself. And even so, she was still refused to do that. And this gives a lot of food for thought, and also shows how much work has still to be done in order to overcome the barriers to accessible hearing, and how much work needs to be done around the changing the mindsets of people also, so that they can understand what needs hard of hearing women need when accessing justice, such as captioning and so on. And also, it's important to see the difference between the needs of hard of hearing women and needs of the deaf women in access to hearing. Because sometimes hard of hearing women who want to access the hearing, they are offered sign language interpreters, while what they need is actually captioning. Next slide, please. And the next issue is violence, on which, as I said, there's very little data. So over half of respondents reported experiencing violence, with psychological violence, bullying, and physical violence being the most common. And some women were unsure if they had experienced violence, which reflects a lack of awareness about the intersection of disability, hearing loss, and abuse. And also, the survey showed that there is a long-term trauma, emotional distress, and the low sense of safety due to violence and limited support systems. Next slide, please. So home, public services, and the workplace where gender-based violence and disability discrimination intersect. And communication barriers make it harder for women to report abuse or access services, increasing their exposure to violence. And talking about violence, and also before we start the panel on discussing hard of hearing women's experience in violence and discrimination, we wanted to look into what is actually violent and why it's important. Next slide. So I wanted to give the examples from the lives of women with disabilities. Women with disabilities are 2 to 5 times more likely to face violence than other women. And for example, 34% of women with a health problem or a disability have experienced physical or sexual violence by a partner in their lifetime. That comparing to 19% of women without disabilities. 61% of women with a health problem or a disability have experienced sexual harassment since the age of 15, that comparing to 54% of women without disabilities. And the main types of violence are considered to be harassment, sexual violence, bullying, physical abuse, and there is also economic violence sometimes when a woman is left without the possibility to independently manage her financial means. And then there is also disability-specific violence, such as restraint, over medication, leaving a person without communication aids, that's also violence, or forced sterilization. And now I would like to give the floor to Maria, who will talk to several experts on the panel on violence and discrimination towards hard of hearing women. Maria, it's your turn. Thank you.
All right. So I would like to introduce you to our favorite expert. We invited here, like Marina Corneli from Romania, Maja Hotaj from Poland, and Ida Hansson from Sweden. For now, I would like to give the floor to girls so that each one of them can introduce themselves to you. So, who wants to start introducing herself?
I think I can start. At the first, I am Maya, I'm just currently in my second year of bachelor's degree studies in medical psychics. In addition to my other activities about disability, I am co-president of the Independent Disabled Students Union at the University of Adam Mickiewicz in Poznań, where I study. And also, I'm big fan of Star Wars and drawing the comics. The next person can also present. So I'm not sure.
Thank you so much. Who's gonna
I can go next.
yeah.
So my
Go.
name is Ida Hansson. I'm the president of the Swedish Association of Hard of Hearing Young People. I'm also working as a disability rights ombudsman for a different organization. I'm hard of hearing since birth. I have 2 hearing aids that I've had since I was 2 years old. And I'm also fully fluent in sign language, also since from my family. Yeah. Marina?
Yes, I'm Marina, Cornelia Marina. I'm an independent activist for non-visible disabilities and mental disorder from Romania, and I am highly active in more field, but specifically right now I do content creator about disabilities on my social media account, Instagram specifically. And I also do like petition and different civic engagement in Bucharest, the capital of Romania, for accessibility, both like pedestrian accessibility, but now since I am also a master degree student in the same university, I get along with my teacher very well, and I want to do to improve the accessibility in the university on both hard of hearing people but other disability as well. So I will be like a Czech person there. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Gail. So now just so we all know how the structure of this panel discussion gonna be. Like, so I'm gonna give you a question by question, and then you can decide whether you want to answer that or not. So it's up to you. And to the audience, to all of you, if you have any comments or your own thoughts on this topic, feel free to leave the comment in the chat. We will have a question and answer session by the end of this webinar. So take your time, but just so you know, you are also very welcome to share your point of view. Okay. The question number 1. What is the situation of disabled and hard of hearing women experiencing violence and discrimination in your country?
I can start if you want.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So in Romania, the understanding of disability is quite limited, to be fair, particularly when it comes to hard of hearing or hearing impairment in general. Because hard of hearing individuals are often marginalized or misunderstood. There is a widespread perception that hearing loss is something trivial, a problem associated mainly with the elderly, rather than recognizing it as a complex and varied condition affecting people of all ages. So this perception contributes to stigma that hard of hearing women face daily. Approximately 80% of women with disability are women with disability in Romania. And this percentage of people report that they reported experiencing violence, a figure that is both alarming and likely underreported because, like I mentioned, people don't really declare this type of stuff, or it's a lot of stigma, an umbrella of stigma that it's making people silent. So Many cases of violence or discrimination go underarrested due to significant system barriers. These barriers include inaccessible support services, a lack of awareness about the right of disabled women, and deeply ingrained societal stigma. Hard of hearing women in particular are often left out of border discussion about disability rights, which tend to focus on more visible disability like mobility or autism. These are the most popular one in Romania, I can say. So one of the most striking issues is gaslighting and invalidation that hard of hearing women experience. When a woman with hearing loss struggle to communicate or misses part of a conversation, it's often interpreted as laziness, rudeness, or even deviances. Instead of understanding her challenges, society tends to place the burden on her to just cope or just adapt yourself without providing the necessary accommodation. Yeah, this misunderstanding had border consequences that is discourage hard of hearing women from seeking help or asserting their needs. The lack of awareness even extends to the systems meant to support them. For example, support services are often inaccessible, economic dependency, exacerbate vulnerability, and the absence of detailed data research, which is a huge problem in Romania because it's lack comprehensive statistic on violence against hard of hearing women, which make it even harder to design effective policies and intervention because we can't practically put pressure on the government or any politics system that we have. And it's interesting because while Romania is Romania signed both the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability and Istanbul Convention, which aim to combat violence against women and protect the rights of people with disability. The implementation of this framework remains really, really weak. So like to sum everything up, the lack of societal recognition and systemic support create a vicious cycle of invisibility and vulnerability for hard of hearing women. As a result, many of us are forced to navigate environments that don't understand or accommodate our needs, leaving us to a higher risk of both interpersonal violence and systemic discrimination. That's it.
And thank you, Marina. I found it quite striking, and it really is shocking that well, everything is hidden. Like our disability is hidden, our issues are hidden, and like everything is put somewhere away. And the question is like what to do with that. But before we go into the question, Maya or Ida, would you like to add something here from your perspective?
About my perspective from the Poland is that I agree with everything you said, Marina, because we have very similar perspective in Poland. And also the big problem in Poland is that disabilities have been considered marginal and taboo for a very, very long time. Also, a lot of abuse go on just because of gender and the fact that a lot of abusers are the men, and also the problems with the abuse and discrimination women is also the most of abuser are the males. And also in Poland we have the big problems which it's not seen on the first side, because when you have the document about your certifications disability, it's very happen that they artificially underestimate the degree of disability in documents when you restart the document. Yes, it's stupid that I have disability from my birth. I can hearing around for 100 decibels, and I still need restart the document and also show the love that I'm deaf. It's stupid, and also the big problems that they getting the love degree of disability because they change everything. It's changed everything, and you can't get the proper help for your needs. And it's all. It's time for Ida. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you to the previous speakers. I recognize a lot of what you've been saying from the Swedish context as well. And some of the things is not like women specific, but disability in general. We see like a negative development in Sweden, which has been like pretty far ahead in the past, but in the past maybe 10, 20 years, we've seen a really negative spiral. A lot of support has been removed or reduced. But what I really wanted to highlight was the lack of data for women, specifically women with disabilities. I was trying to find like statistics, trying to find specifically about women with disabilities or even women who are hard of hearing. And one agency, the Swedish Agency for Participation, says that women with disabilities are a target of violence about as much or the same, about as much or a bit more than other women in general. But they note like immediately as they say that there is not enough statistics to support that. They mention some like factors like weaker economic situation or discrimination in the labor market, maybe lower education that could be contributing factors. But again, there is no data supporting that. And when I speak to the Swedish Agency of Employment, asking them for disability statistics, they're not able to provide it, and they cannot provide for specific disabilities. If I wanted to know the situation for women who are hard of hearing, they could not give me that kind of data. And if we look at statistics over violent crime, disability is not registered when you report a violent crime, so there is no data about violent crime targeting women with disabilities. And this year in 2024, Sweden was reviewed by the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And they highlighted specifically this lack of data about women, that there is a lack of specific statistics for the situation of women and girls, which means that it's difficult to do policy to improve the situation because we don't have any information about how the situation is. And it's also something that I see a lack of in my own organization, a lack of interest maybe in dealing with this. We're currently in dialogue with the Swedish Agency for Participation, and we have a hard time getting people who want to join that dialogue, who want to talk about this topic. So it's something that really needs more attention in different ways. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Maya and Ida. I just wanted to quickly comment that I feel, regarding to what Maya said, that I feel women are generally adapting toward that we have to prove we have a hearing loss and therefore we need adjustment. I feel like we are weighted in the way that we have to adapt. But not really known how to act for adapting for our needs. So, well, this is a struggle. And yes, I agree that we also need more data on the violence experienced by hard of hearing women. If you are to find the solution how to prevent it without the full data, we might have a problem trying to figure out how to help women. Okay, now we are moving to the second question. Have you or your female friend, like hard of hearing friend, faced the violence and or discrimination?
We keep the same order or you wanna change it? Okay. So I go. Good. So we are talking now about the personal experience. And on a personal level, I've encountered counter situation that highlight how misunderstood and stigmatized hearing disabilities are. One of the most frustrating aspects is the reaction people have when you try to explain your disability. Instead of having a compassionate approach or an understanding one, they often get annoyed as if you are using your hearing loss as an excuse for failure or mistakes. And for example, when I ask for clarification or an extra explanation to ensure I understand something correctly, it's often seen as repetitive or irritating. People act like I am wasting their time rather than acknowledging that this small accommodation could prevent miscommunication or mistakes down the line. But instead of offering accessible solution to avoid such situation, they double down on their frustration, making it clear they see my need for support as an inconvenience. Beyond this, there is the assumption that if you have a disability, you must also lack intelligence, which is funny. This perception has followed me through my life. I've never, like, one specific event that I will never forget was when I was a child. Parent of my classmate accused my mother of paying the teacher for my grades, for my good grades. They couldn't at home that I was capable of achieving success of my own because I had hearing impairment. To them, if I couldn't pronounce every word correctly or occasionally making spelling mistakes, normal struggle for a child still learning to write and read, it meant that I was somehow less capable. And I still find it funny because this mentality is still promoted even in places where you support as a person with disability to receive support, which is not given. And this microaggression and passive aggressive comment didn't just undermine my confidence for a long time, they questioned my worth and ability to process everything. And yet such assumptions are so deeply integrated in societal attitude that they go unchallenged. People don't even try to use their critical thinking and see to connect the dot differently. It's the same song all the time. Living individual like me constantly having to prove our value and defend our achievements. And even in more extreme cases, such as the time someone in public became so angry at me for not hearing them clearly that they had threatened me, like they wanted to slap me because I had to apologize and explain my disability just to protect myself. This moment underscore how little understanding and empathy exists for people with hearing loss. Society often expect us to bear the burden of adapting rather than making even the smallest effort to meet us halfway. And moreover, they usually try to make us feel bad and guilty for having the disability and not hearing, for example, pardon me or something like that, which I find it extremely unfair. And while I was listening to your report, I was also thinking of one of my fear I had for a long time that should be a very good should be itself a very good debate. And that fear was that how good I will be as a mom if I can hear my kids, because that was something I heard a lot around me as a woman, and as how I will be as a mom if I cannot hear all the time my kid, how I will wake up in the night if I can't hear my kid, and so on and so forth. But now I coped with this as well, but I am pretty sure that is still a reality for many women out there. So I want to raise this question to be more seen and acknowledged.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's a lot of struggle. I think that some of us or all of us can relate to it more or less. But well, I kind of feel that the problem is not in us generally. And the second thing is that there is such a thing called an overachiever syndrome. It's in women generally, but for hard of hearing ones even more. Because well, we put more effort to achieve certain level in school, work, and so on, but it can backfire, as we can see in your Magna's case. Well, it's like you try to be on the equal level, to at the same level as your classmate or colleague, but it seems like it's too much somehow for them at least. Okay, I'm shutting down now. Who is next?
And also, I wanted to say about this question. Unfortunately, I had a lot this type of situation because a lot of people don't believe me that I'm really disabled and think I'm faking it. I think that when they see a young person and even more so a woman, stereotypes about hearing impairment come a lot. They for every time the imagination, the people with the hearing problem, they always imagination the older people, the men because of the music and don't healthy chosen. It also happened to me that the conductor on the train when I drove to the school didn't want to recognize my disability card, which I used the discount on this ticket, and said that I didn't look disabled. And also, the Poland is the problem that the most disabled kid with the disabled of hearing, uh, born as an only deaf child in an whole hearing family where there is little knowledge about the disability, the needs, and also it's the big problems that later the kids with this also the stereotypes which family taught about being deaf, child think it's their fault that they are born like deaf, and also I think it's need to change uh, about the society.
Well, I mean, I'm always wondering how we are supposed to look disabled. Like, what does it even mean, to be honest? Well, thank you, Maya. Ida, do you want to add your point?
Yeah. Yeah, I recognize a lot again, having to look disabled. Also, sounding hard of hearing. I often get comments that I don't sound like I'm hard of hearing. Also, when I use sign language, people say, "Oh, but you speak so well. Why would you need to learn sign language?" It's just like small comments like that. I also have stories from myself and from friends about, bullying in school, isolation, loneliness. I recognize what you said about like the good girl syndrome, like overachieving people who get burned out in school, like really trying to prove yourself and struggling without accommodations are good enough, and you get really tired. You go home from school and you sleep, and you have no time for free time or doing fun things. You just work all the time. But I think in some ways it's the same kind of violence that others face as well, but it could be an extra vulnerability because you have a dependence on support from your surroundings. But like you said in your presentation, also there are things that are disability specific. It could be things like your partner speaking for you, or like handling relations, handling phone calls, which means that you wouldn't be able to know how to do that yourself, calling like services, calling doctors. That's also something for children specifically, that their parents might do more than they would do for other children, which means that you don't learn how to handle like that kind of contact yourself. Something that I've experienced in some conversations with friends that is like women specific, I would say, is the fear of passing on your disability to your children. I don't know, I haven't had that kind of conversation with men before, but talking to women about motherhood and wanting to be a mother and not wanting to pass on a disability, it's a very difficult conversation. To me, at least, it feels like some kind of degree of, I don't know, self-hatred, in not wanting children to exist in the world who are like you. I don't know. That's a difficult conversation that I've had with a few friends, that I don't know how to deal with properly, something that we might need to talk about more. And that's also something that you get judgment from society, wanting to have a family if you're disabled. I know of a case in Sweden recently where a deafblind woman was denied IVF treatment because she was deafblind. So even though we don't have forced sterilizations anymore, there's still an attitude of you're not someone who should be having children. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I also wanted to point the fact that Ida tackled important issue here, being independent, like being not fully standing up for ourselves, like not being able to deal with phone calls or the doctor appointment and so on and so on. While it also teaches how the thing people thought of the helplessness pattern, because you are always dependent, so you're like, no, I can't do this, I can do that, and so on, because you just don't know how to deal with that by yourself, which is also quite big barrier if you want to develop yourself, especially as an adult person. Okay, the last question, and then we will give the floor to Sari. So what would you suggest to improve the situation of hard of hearing women in the society? Any ideas?
I do. I actually working on a project right now. So to improve the situation of hard of hearing women, I truly believe that the key focus should be educational awareness campaign. One of the main thing I'm working right now is a pilot project I'm launching in Bucharest. This project is aimed at collecting this missing data. We are all complaining about the level of inclusivity in schools and high schools for people with various disability. But of course, I will focus since it's my disability. I'm more aware of what to look for my own. So including hearing loss. I want to get a real insight into how well these institutions are meeting the needs of students with disabilities, but more importantly, I want to use this opportunity to raise awareness and educate, because during the data collection phase, I'll also be running a non-formal education workshop designed to promote basic knowledge about disabilities, accessibilities, and inclusion. This workshop will help create a foundational understanding of what disability is, how we can identify it, and most importantly, how we can build a more inclusive culture in our schools and society. Many children with disability, including hearing loss, are often silent about their condition. Because of the stigma they face, they hide their disability either to fear of being or either due to fear of bully or social pressure, or because their parents are afraid of that thing. So they encourage them to just keep for yourself and hide it as much as you can, believing it's better to keep it low key. This needs to change. We need to make it clear and having a disability is normal. And it shouldn't be something to hide or feel ashamed about. I keep repeating this key idea that you don't have to be ashamed of it. This is why the workshop I'm organizing are so important. They will encourage students to talk about their disability, seek proper diagnosis, because this is also another problem I'm seeing in Romania, and not feel like they have to pretend to be something they are simply not. And like you already mentioned, there are so many coping mechanisms that make people with women specifically with disability in unhealthy rush for achievement or proving themselves, workaholism, and so on and so forth, which I find it extremely unhealthy and unproductive on long term. At the same time, we are also in my project, I'm also aiming to raise awareness among disabled individuals, because helping them understand that we are all different and that we all face we have different universe around us, can lead to a different experience of the same situation. And by fostering a more compassionate and inclusive mindset in both student and teacher, we can start breaking down the barriers that perpetuate stigma. We need to make it clear that everyone deserves to be heard, seen, and supported regardless of their abilities. So this project and this workshop specifically are just the beginning, but they hold the potential to truly shift perspective. And I hope I will create a more inclusive for all of us. Thank you.
Well, then all we have to do is hold our thumbs up for you. And well, we need more people like you, Marina. Okay, Maya?
And apart from the fact that I agree with everything, because we need all of that too. And also I think it would be good idea to start with real change in the system, not only in healthcare, because the most people get the point only on the healthcare that need the change, but also support for people with hearing disabilities need the change, the renovation, and also change of this type, how they get the disability section, and also that they can't live with reports of discrimination without saying, you oversensitive because the most as the girl, and also the deaf girl. I'm hearing that I'm oversensitive, and also it needs to change that girls are not oversensitive. We just want to protect other girls from the abusers, and also we need real change activists, not politicians who thought and never doing that. And I think it's the most thing we need to change.
Thank you so much, Maya. I would comment more on your speech, but we are running out of time. So now I'm giving the floor to Ida.
Yeah, so I wrote down 4 things that are all political changes or legislative changes that I would like to see in Sweden specifically. Some of them come from the UN committee, the recommendations that Sweden got this year that I think should really be highlighted. One of them is that Sweden needs a stronger anti-discrimination legislation, and I'm sure other countries do as well. But Sweden, for example, does not have a hate speech legislation that includes persons with disability, and that's something that I think we need. I think we need a better system for collecting statistics and data, also doing a consequence analysis of legislation, of policy, making sure there are indicators for women and girls with disabilities when you do collect statistics and do consequence analysis. I think there needs to be general improvements of all of the support systems that we have, because they've been deteriorating over time. And they need to be strengthened in general, not just for women, but for every person with a disability. For example, regarding workplace discrimination and support in the workplace. And then the last one I wanted to mention is this stronger access to services in sign language. It's something that we're working on, but that also needs to be improved, being able to have access to sign language interpreters or palantypists, if that's your preference, being able to talk to like emergency services in text or in sign language. Yeah, different examples like that. So those were my 4 key issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. You pointed out quite important things, like we definitely need legislation and data, not only for Sweden, but for all of the countries generally. So thank you again. It's really nice to hear from your side, and I'm really happy we had a bit of time to talk with you. And now, unfortunately, I need to move on with agenda. So now I'm giving the floor to Karina to introduce our next speakers.
Thank you very much, Maria. Our next speaker is Sari Hirvonen-Skarbo from the Euro-TIU organization and member of the European Disability Forum Board, who will speak about the experiences of hard of hearing and deaf women in Finland. Hello, Sari. Good to see you. The floor is yours.
Yes, that's me here. I'm sorry, I have a problem with my telephone or my laptop, so I have to use the both of them now. But you hear me very well, right?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, then my name is Sari Hirvonen-Skarbo. I'm from Finland. I am representing Euro-CIU, which is cochlear implant users in Europe. And I have been hard of hearing from my birth, and I have been using my hearing aids until I was 40 years old. And after I got my twins, so I started to lose my hearing, and I got my cochlear implants after that. So I'm talking about my experience about deaf and hard of hearing in Finland. And I'm just starting to about this, that we have the violence of the woman today. That is our reason why we have this webinar. So there's our president, the wife of our president, who is going to be giving the more attention to the violence of Finland, and is going to be take care of looking after the United Nations Women's work here at Finland for next year. And next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, the first question when I started to talk with Karina, it was that I would like to collect all the materials from the data material from concerning about the disabilities in Finland, especially with the women, hard of hearing and deaf women. But I find out that was not easy, was not possible to do it, because mostly the data material is concerning all the disabilities. And there was making no difference between what kind of disability was had or what kind of gender disability there was. And I was looking for the police reports. I was looking for other authorities giving the information. And that's mostly talking about mostly information about physically disabled people, because they are more visible. So and also to contact to Deaf Association and Kuuloliitto, which is hearing association here in Finland. I took contact to Ombudsman Finland, who is specialized in all the crimes and also the disabilities questions. And answer from all these was that no, sorry, we don't have anything. We don't have so much. You have to yourself have to get the information. Yourself have to go to study about this issue. And so it means that we need to have more researches about this area. And that's why you think about why we should have researches. It's that, as you have told, I was looking for your discussion, that you need to have all the math facts and all the data material about this issue. So you have something to prove, real facts to give to all the politicians about this issue. That it's not only we think or we question about this, but we have to give some as the facts on the paper. And next slide, please. So I did this way. I have 3 cases, which includes deaf and hard of hearing people, women. And general information was about the studies is that the disability and domestic violence survey and interview data collected in the project 2021 was used as research data. And the violence is more common for persons with disabilities than in the rest of the population. But there are differences between genders in the frequency of experiencing different forms of violence. And there was such common information, I think it's almost same at each country. But what I was reading in end of this subject was that keeping silent about sexual violence is a part of discrimination experienced by adults and children with disabilities. And especially disabled persons with hearing and vision impairment or reduced in hearing and vision have deeper opportunities to avoid abuse because of them they may not see or hear abuser. Is that right? I don't know, but very, very interesting question. Okay, I start with case number 1. Please turn the slide. This was very serious case about a couple of years ago. And there was violent attack. It was also a question about the rape. And by the accent, I know this person. I know her disabilities. She's deaf and blind. She's cochlear but user a very bad sight. And I never talked with her because I thought that is very big trauma for her. But it happened very common situation. She was sitting on the train, local commuter train, and I understood that she always friendly. And there was the boy sitting quite close to her, and they started to look, oh, what is that? But she didn't realize what is the situation. But she turned out and went out the train, and then she realized that the boys are following her and start to follow her, and then start to do the violent attacks. And that was very special because usually all the rapes and that kind of things happens at the places where the victim knows or with the persons which he knows. But this was just we never met them, and he didn't know what is happening, and he had a little very bad sight, but he knew and he could see something that is happening. And this case got a lot of publicity by the press and social media because there was question about who are the boys, why they are doing. I mean, not the why they're doing, but because they were not. Let's say they're coming from abroad or migrations. So they was very much talking about what they are doing and why, but they didn't talk about that the victim, what is her situation. There was somebody questioning how she could see it so very well, but the person was very well educated and she knew what to do with this kind of situation because it's a part of her education. So she was able to make a call to police, and they make very quickly the reactions about this situation. So the police they catch at least one of the persons, and there was of course there was the conviction. At least one of them, and the other boys, they were younger than 18. And at that time, the law in Finland was quite old-fashioned, that they were not able to concentrate on the victim and her rights, and not because also she was with the disability. But nowadays, the situation has changed very much because there's a new law came about 2 years ago. So there are more opportunity to get more rights and more visibility of this case. And so that means that you have, and also I will recognize that what if this happens, that everybody knows what to do, what is the next step to do, anyhow, how to take that contact, how to make a call 112, and how to work with this situation, how to contact, and also you always get the help from the Special Crisis Center, and also go to the hospital, what to do there, and so on. So we have to, but at this case, that we need also to make some education that way. I will say that. Okay, next slide. Number two, the case number 2 and 3. The
Sorry?
second case, discrimination.
Sorry,
Which is-
can I say something? You have about 3 minutes. I hope
Okay,
you can
yeah.
finish in 3 minutes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. At the second case, the discrimination which happened a couple of months ago, there was a cochlear producer attending to exam for the nursery education organized by the University of Applied Sciences. And she was forced to remove the external part of speech processor of her cochlear implants. And even though she told that she had to hear, you have to listen, you have to hear, but they refused who was taking care of the this situation. So, and I'm sorry. So our hearing association has said very strong that is it really discrimination? We have a right to use cochlear implants, and all the disabilities and disabilities part that you need. Okay, that's a one case. And the second last case is number 3, the death history. I was just reading very quickly about the memories and stories about deaf people. And there was a research made, which also translated in English. It's about the perspective of the deaf people community. That they want to contribute to the reconciliation process in Finnish government, which globally the first of its kind. And there was a question about the race hygiene, sterilizations, forced abortions, and marriage bans of the deaf. And that's one example of what had happened before. So it's good to also have some history behind you, that you know what situation about 50 years ago or what is now. Because I'm East historian, so sorry, I'm always mixing this kind of things. Okay, that will be last one. Last slide. Thank you very much. And there is a book, the cover of this deaf history, and it's just a couple of weeks ago translated in English, so we are able to read that or order this book. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sari, for taking time to find the examples of violence and discrimination. This is very valuable information and valuable facts. And I think other listeners in our audience could also remember of the similar situations which happened to hard of hearing people in their country, because I'm sure this happened not only in Finland, but across all Europe. What we
Everywhere.
need is
Yes.
more data and more statistics. And now I would ask Lavinia to share the last slides. I would like to share with you some tips to advance visibility of hard of hearing women in your organizations. So what can you do for that? So try to center gender equality, make it integral to your mission and strategy, and address gender-specific needs. Also, advocate for gender and disability mainstreaming in community and national policies. Importantly, create gender-sensitive policies in your organization and collect sex disaggregated data. Data is the key for building, for shaping budget or for advocacy. It's an important advocacy tool. Then ensure gender balance in leadership roles. Use quotas and rotation system to ensure that both genders are represented, and consider having chairperson and vice chairs of different genders. Next slide. Then incorporate women's perspectives in projects that you are doing. Think how your project will impact hard of hearing women who are recipients of the project's benefit. And also assess and address the unique needs of hard of hearing women. What you can do the checklist to guide gender-sensitive project design. Then empower hard of hearing women by establishing committees or wings of hard of hearing women in order to amplify their voices, and encourage women's participation across all areas, not just on gender-specific issues. And finally, provide targeted support to women when they need it. What you can do, you can offer training in safe spaces to build specific skills that women may need and build their confidence. Thank you for your participation, your attention today, and participation in this webinar. And now we have 5 minutes left for some questions and answers. And I'm looking into chat. And I see that Elif wanted to share some experiences that you had. Elif,
Yes, me.
do you hear us? Can you please
Yes,
share
I
the
can see.
experiences?
I can hear.
We can't hear you. Okay, now I think we can hear you. Yes, thank you, Elif. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am Elif from Turkey. I am the representative of Bionic Ear Association of Bionic Ear Child. But we are also taking care of adults, also women. And now we are here I am here with two members of our association. And they are also a woman, and they are also a mother. But before after my writing, Marina, I think, shared her concerns about as a mother, if the baby cries or make have some fever or coughs, how can I hear her or him? And I don't want to tell it again, but one of my friends want me to share this. Before being a mother and before marriage, there is a I think something wrong in Turkey. In fact, this issue can be also considered for men, but unfortunately, the issue of being chosen one is more common for women. What am I saying? What am I trying to saying? They want. Hello, Marina. The woman may not be approved by the groom's family before marriage. When a man says, I will marry with a woman hard of hearing or using cochlear implant or just deaf, the family of groom may not be approved the girl, the woman, unfortunately. Maybe it is not very common, but it's very common in very rural areas in Turkey. And one of my friends wants me to ask and share with you that she is also a mother, and she wants to go to gynecological doctors, but she has a cochlear implant, but she has some kind of can't fully understand. The doctor can't understand what she is talking about because of her verbally. How can I say? I don't know. And she wants to call her husband to get in the room, the doctor's room. But in private hospitals, it is okay to the husbands come in. But in the in the government hospitals, it is not allowed to men to come in. So she always has problem with the gynecological disease, and she can't come in the doctor's room with her husband. And she wants me to share this with you.
I want to add something to this also because Romania, yeah, it might be a bit of societal or even a bit religious approach on how we see disability, but in Romania we also have the stigma of how disability are basically seen as curse in the population, especially like you mentioned in a rural area. And we still have traditional families that they don't send their girl to marriage because they feel like they won't be approved, or they simply like arrange marriages typically. And what I also want to add, which I find it very disturbing, is also how families, especially poor family, use people with girls with disabilities for prostitution and stuff, because they see that this is the only way they can make use of them. And it's very disturbing, but it's a reality that happens a lot, and usually without their consents. It's just hitting in their how it called, in their self-esteem and dignity at the end of the day, and they just use them for family reasons.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, thank you so much for sharing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments and for your observation about the problem for mothers and problems in family planning and discrimination and stigma, which are very valuable experiences to share and to understand how much work we still need to do in order to prevent this from happening in the future. And I'm looking in the chat. I see the comment from Claire de Aquino. I still really miss the protagonism of deaf and hearing impaired people in academic research in Brazil and Europa. So hard of hearing people and deaf people are missing in research, and that's true, but there are more researchers coming now. One example is Maria Skochinska, who is doing her research, and also myself. I was doing research on inclusion of hard of hearing people in Russia and Germany, and I do not see any more questions in the chat. I see one comment from James. I joined late, but this is super amazing and detailed. I would love to this amazing team, despite it's for women, but it's a great initiative and discussion as well. And we hope that this webinar will help you to take some first steps in the organization to make women visible, to make their barriers visible, and to collect more data and statistics on hard of hearing women, discrimination and violence. We hope that you could, perhaps you could in the future make a survey in the similar way as FHO did the survey, surveying hard of hearing women, and then using the data for your advocacy and for plans and project. So I believe on this note, we can close the webinar. Thank you so much for all your participation. Thanks a lot to the captioner, and thanks a lot to all speakers and the organizers of the webinar. Without you, this webinar would have not happened. Thank you so much. You will receive the report. And you will receive the report. And yeah, I just see some more comments are coming in the chat. Okay. From Claire, I still find a lot of misinformation about deaf people and those who use hearing technology in libraries. In Brazil, we have very little deaf protagonism in research. We are invisible in research. It's the same situation in Europe and elsewhere. There's lots of research on signing deaf community, a lot of research in the United States and the UK, as far as I know, but not so much about hard of hearing. And that is the gap we need to fill in with your help. So we're a little bit behind the schedule. If there is nothing that we would like to discuss, I think we can close the webinar. And I wish you the best of luck in your struggles for the rights of hard of hearing women. Thank you so much. Thank you.